Using a skid steer is a lot easier than using an engine hoist. There's the new engine. We've got it bolted into the trans already. It's up on the cradle. Went ahead and put it on one of our transmission pump carts. So that table just lifts up. We can lay the back handle down. That way we can kind of move it around and get it centered where we need to when we go to set the car back down on it. It kind of shifted and moved on us when we were swapping the engines around, so we ended up just sitting it on the floor so it didn't fall, and then switching the engine out. So Chris has been working on getting this 3.6 dressed. What did you do to it so far? We got a new water pump, spark plugs, coil boots. There's a new belt on it. All the accessories are back on the engine. The harness is going back on. We are going to have to lift it back up probably with the tractor again so we can get all the exhaust underneath of it. But there are some broken bolts in the exhaust he's going to have to fix first. So here are some of those broken bolts.
I cut them. I just got to drop them out, put new bolts and nuts on it.
So that all needs to get taken care of. Then we can get the manifolds on. I mean, really, once you get the exhaust on, you're pretty much ready to set the car down on that engine, aren't you?
Yeah, we're getting really close. All that stuff there.
Yeah, but that's not a whole lot left to go on.
No.
Well,
the little coolant tubes will go on here. The littler of the two tubes.
Yeah.
Those will go on before the motor goes back in. The big one actually bolts on right here. I'll put it back on after we get the motor up in there. It gives me a little more room. And then I gotta get the exhaust snaked in here and the cradle before it goes up in there.
That's not too bad though.
No, I'm gonna put the torque converter bolts in next. At least get one of them started.
Then you can get the starter on once you have the converter lined up with the flex plate.
Yeah. I'm more so thinking what's going to be the easiest route here. It was kind of a pain to get that exhaust snaked out of it, even out here on the ground. The cats probably won't be too bad because they like slip in and you can get to them. I'm just trying to think of what's going to have the most room to do what I need to do inside the car, because I'm not going to have enough room to tighten the torque converter bolts. As long as I can get one of them started to where it's aligned, then I can get the starter in it. But I'm going to have to do the rest of it from the bottom, which I should have room with the exhaust in it, because I did when I took it out. I hadn't had the exhaust out of it at that point, so it's getting there.
And while Chris was working on that, we got the cylinder head sat back on the engine last night for this Dodge, this 400. The exhaust ports have all been fixed up on it for the threads for the manifold. So that's torqued now. And then I need to start getting the rest of this back together, but I just pulled that blue Fiesta in the other building to get the TCM put in. That's a pretty quick and easy install, so I'm going to do that first, because we can definitely have that one done today. This one I don't know if we're going to finish in time, so I'd rather get that one done and get it out of here. So this is the TCM for that Fiesta. So it bolts on the side of the case. Then these two are on the shift rails. So this is what controls like what the shifter would move in the car. It also sends a signal back out through the harness to run the clutch actuators. So on the car here, I've already got the air box out of the way. That is it right there. So I got two connectors inside of it, and then it's just 4 bolts to hook it into the case. So the connectors are a little bit of a pain in the ass to get out of there. There's not a lot of room, but it's not all that hard to do. You can usually do it from the top side. You don't even have to put it up in the air. Actually, the hardest bolt to get to is the top one. So when it sits on the car, it sits just like this. So those two right there are a little bit of a pain, and these two are really easy to get to. So I'll go ahead and get the connectors off. Then we'll get that thing popped out of there. This is the old one that came out of the car. You always want to check too to make sure you got your O-rings out. So they're not on here, so I'm going to have to get those out of the case. I've already got the O-rings on this new one. Getting it out of here, that was not fun. I ended up having to take the entire battery tray out, because where the harness runs across there, there's a zip tie that holds it. This one was zip tied in a way where I just could not get a socket all the way on that top bolt. Now, 3 of them are long, 1 is short. The short bolt is in this position here, which if you look at it, it makes sense. These are all longer, and there's a short one. But just in case you forget when you're coming out, or going back together, the short one goes in that position. So I'm gonna reach in there real quick, get these O-rings out. There's one, there's the other. You just pop them out. So they're down there on the floor now. I'll get them when I get the car out of here. But now I can get the new one in. It doesn't hurt to lube up those O-rings when you go to put it in. I usually have with some WD-40 or something like that, just so it goes in the case easier. So we got the TCM mounted back in there. Battery tray back in. There's 3 10s that hold this battery box to the tray. 3 10s that hold that tray down to its frame. I've got a module mounted back on the side of it. It's just a 2 8mm on top, and it lifts out of there. But everything's plugged back in. I've got the ground wire back to the body. If you unbolt that ground, it's just an 8mm. That wire comes out of the way. Gives you a lot more room down there to work with. So once this is done, we'll get the battery back in here and get it all hooked back up. We're still going to leave the negative off until we're completely done with it. But then the air box can go back in and all that stuff. And all this is without putting the car up in the air. I mean, I have it on the lift, but I haven't lifted it up, so. The air box is sat back down in there. There's just this little piece of rubber and a clamp here with 1 torque screw that holds it down. And then, right there, it's just a fresh air snorkel that goes down into the bumper. It just snaps in place, nothing holds that down. So the air filter on there, I'm going to get this tightened up real quick. Then we'll put the top of the air filter housing and the tube back in. Air box is back all together now. I just gotta lift my socket back there. I just gotta tighten up the clamp at the throttle body still. So the mass airflow sensor is plugged back in. The hose right here is back on, and down here, that's where the PCV vents to, is bottom side of the air cleaner housing. And that's pretty much it for reassembly. I've still got to hook up the negative battery cable and then head over to the other building and get the Zeus scan tool so that I can program this TCM. It's going to need programmed every time you swap it. Also, looking under the hood of this thing, all this corrosion that's just on everything. I'm going to take a guess and say this is probably a flood car. It smells like a flood car under the hood. I mean, everything is corroded. I mean, even the top of that fender, this bolt, it's rusted all to hell. Everything down in here was really rusty. So I'm pretty sure at some point this thing went for a swim. So the journey's getting lowered down right now, back onto its cradle. We've got it vaguely in place. We just lowered the car down to about here. Then from here, it's going to be a lot of little movements, forward, backwards, left, right, to get it back lined up. But overall, they aren't too bad to lower back down on themselves. We'll go till we get it just about to the engine mounts.
Will you make sure your sway bar thing's flipped back on the inside?
Yeah.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's out of the way.
Everything else look good?
All right, stop.
Looking.
It's looking pretty good. We're still gonna need to push that boot over a little bit on that steering shaft. Okay, I just wanna make sure it's not bombed up on the brake line there. Whoa. There it is. It's hanging back in the car all on its own. We're gonna take it back up now so we can finish the stuff on the bottom side and then depending on what time it is, by the time we get this thing fully bolted in the car, that'll probably be about the end of the day today. So the owner of that first gen came by. We've got 6 new injectors put in it. And then this is the new crossover tube. So this is the part that will go to the turbo. And this is the part that sits up on the grid heater. So now this entire cart is stuff that we've got to throw on that thing. Also ran out of time today to get this thing programmed, so tomorrow morning I will get the TCM and this thing programmed and calibrated. So that's one way to get these pipes back together. Ratchet strap on either side, and then you can just kind of pull it in.
It's slipping. I'm gonna have to get it cinched down a little tighter.
I stopped videoing right as it slid right together. We took a chisel and we opened up the end a little bit, and it just pulled it straight in. But it's good. I've seen a few of you guys asking too, what's going on with the white dually. It's still sitting in my driveway. I was going to put it in the garage and take my white 04 Ram out, but that actually doesn't fit being a dually between my toolbox and the vehicle on this side that I've got to part welding floor pans in. So it's going to have to sit out here. I got to pull the transmission out of it and rebuild it. That's going to be the first thing I need to do to the truck. So I'm just waiting for a good time to do that.